Chile here with Sirius Talis Moon, and the moon is with Spica. Continuing on the trajectory with Mercury retrograde, there is a lot about the emotional messages and messages about emotional or communication about relational patterns, because moon in Venus sign is the value of relation. And Spica requires for a value of relation that is on equal footing. For that, the world needs to allow such relations. It's not about equal footing in terms of class or status. It's about equal footing universally. And I'll address this in a very simple notion. A communication is not based on equal footing. Does not with the value of secure attachment. Is a communication that would always inevitably end up in treason. Why? Because one cannot be true to themselves and be in communication that is of not equal footing or of subjugation form. You say that I didn't mention gender here. It's to all genders, all classes and all origins. Emotional needs cannot be replaced with money successfully. It would always yield treason. That is the truth. Um, Material needs that are needs cannot be replaced with only quality time, let's say. The quality time is very important. And they cannot be answered by extortion or treason. Naturally, extortion or treason based communication is not equal footing communication and is not compatible for longevity of happy, thriving relations. Those that seek, now this is Jupiter, now, how should I say it? Anything going through Leo has a Dubai divorce to it. Mercury will go direct and then go to Leo. We'll see that profoundly because Mercury rules Uranus, that can also be associated with divorce. Uranus is associated with divorce, but not necessarily divorce. Does Uranus have to bring divorce? Not at all. But it will not stand something that's inauthentic and something that would eventually lead to treason. Uranus would liberate the profound essence of life from that system. Um, for example, Venus also ruled by Mercury. So, for example, we all know the trajectory of if woman is in relation is not happy for her. She begins to look less beautiful. Even Jordan Peterson addressed this and said, men need to allow women to grow beautiful. They cannot confine a flower and expect it to bloom. They cannot allow their insecurity by her shine be projected onto her and be abusive to her, and then that woman will run away from them. Now, usually, that woman, she doesn't walk with, how should I say, normally at her equal footing would be standing by her man, doing the shadow work, looking a good perspective on her partner. If he wrote that, to be very honest, women are like men in that situation because they will not pay attention. They would say, he's a good friend. Um, a good friend is important more than runaway loves. And then she will encounter that through something external. Does that something external mean that that's what's compatible? Sometimes yes, sometimes not. But it holds the component that was missing. Let's say a lot of women, when they do shadow work, instead of being with men that have moon, they are like, let's say, the younger brother or the child of that woman. They begin to draw the moons that are behind them. The moon that the woman can be, the man that will hold the woman in a way that's not seeking from her the protection or the emotional needs met, which is, again, is not a shame, but it's just something that is needing more awareness and conscious awareness, and then it can be met adaptively, even as long as the person does not expect that to be meeting with the other needs, let's say. And to make sure that they're not expecting that from person who actually needs, if both of them need to have somebody that provides them, and both of them are only learning that, then, and if they're incompatible with the moon nakshatra, then they would need different partners. If they're not incompatible, it may be more facilitated that they may grow together or learn together, depending on other aspects. Okay, Pluto to Venus card aspects can challenge that. And this is also where for those women begin to meet the moons behind them. Does it mean that this moon behind them were offering secure attachment? Not always. But then they would begin to discern. They would say no, not only to the moons that come after theirs, but also to those of the moon behind them that don't bring secure attachment. I had a relationship coach, Karnit, and one of the very good teachings she said, but not, there are components in falling in love that are, let's just say, if I will complete her sentence, when people go from limerence, trauma bond, misplaced arousal, that's basically trauma based. It's basically um, to deal with the implications of basically rape and violence. It's not something that's basis for not business and not love. Completely changed the things that the second spouse of Donald Trump was dealing with, which was this business are like business, and then marriage is marriage, and marriage was very equal, but the divorce were challenging because it was seen like business, and they stayed friends and so on. But this is where, and now when we see the affiliation to, let's say, the Epsteins, it's not about, oh, look at Donald Trump, he's such a this and such a that. It's like he grew up in an environment that was business environment, but that was based on trauma bonds and misplaced arousals to everyone. Okay? Stormy was not, there's no such thing as sex worker. So Stormy Daniels was trafficked. She couldn't know what she was getting into if she's never been exposed to secure attachment and had the access to choice. Some would go even so much as other things, and I'm not tending to those other things. But this is also true to Donald Trump. Does the monetary compensation for Ms. Daniels, is it suffice? No, without being exposed to secure attachment, to growing out of misplaced arousal, the healing, a lot of people around the Me Too were asked, well, how much money? Name the number. Saying, you've already extorted me, how much money? I say, I did not extort you. I'm looking for a change, and for the change, the world has to change. The world has to be compatible with secure attachment, with relaxed arousal, with something that's not reason-based. It was not the humiliation right. It was speaking up, because otherwise one would die. And then when they silenced that, the use of humor or satire to express difficult things. And then when the entire communication was misinterpreted because of the cultural changes, and then does it mean that people don't need resources? Yeah, they need resources on the basis of the retrieved life energy and the removal of the threats amongst people to living in a house, being able to work in a job that is compatible with the sense of self, not being molded into and it doesn't work with the religious that is human trait based. And in that way, all the ways to show genuine and authentic care and love have to cross the glass ceiling. And that glass ceiling is already beginning to remediate not only the cross-classicism, cross-gender, but also a world that is actually thriving and prosperous, because within the common people are also a lot of things that are misconceptions. Just think about the fact that when a man, let's say, wants to learn a good way, then he sometimes turns to the guru, to the teacher, to the imam, to the rebbe, to the priest, and all of them, being even the most well-intended, will fail him, because he doesn't learn to honor a woman as equal, erotically and non-erotically. Or he learns some utopic notion that people just go from rape culture, hypersexuality, sexual avoidance to secure attachment. And he would need a woman that is the closest to secure attachment, and then as women grow and evolve, he will be able to find partners. So this man would also need to be aware that the first woman he's attracted to might not be his spouse, because she is still growing. And vice versa for women. Doesn't work with Catholic marriage concept. And that's Uranus. And this is why Uranus can be said to rule divorce, but it's only ruling divorce when there's reason to divorce. And usually people see certain things, even when we talk about roommates. They're saying, oh, I don't want to live with you ever in one dwelling. You're dominant, I'm dominant, we need separate houses. I say, I agree, 100%. Then circumstances fall into this and that, and then people spend 2, 3, 4, 5 years in different condos, one dwelling, and some sort of combination. Eventually, this crisis happened, that crisis happened, they separate, until the world has different, but either of them has their own dwelling, and the world is on equal footing. They will. The issue result is only result in that way. Not one of them is seen as cuckoo, or one of them is seen even as imprisoned, by the way. But if there is sexual boundary violation, um, then let's just say if somebody had to apply to assisted death because somebody was sexually abusive or aggressive or sadistic, in spirit or in matter, in praxis, it doesn't matter, the foot stamp in energy, then that can be it can be, it's either the end of the pattern or the end of the person that was aggressive, even if that person goes by assisted death. Even if the victim goes by assisted death, that pattern would be the end of. Why? Because it's a self-undermining pattern. Um, and again, it's not about vengeance, and it's not even about enmity. It's just the ways in which the person undermined themselves. But the problems that arise a decade later eventually come down to, oh, wait a second, she will never be the simple woman. Good morning. Like, oh, but she cannot stand this dominant, controlling. Yeah, so well, then she cannot stand me. Uh, that part, if this is something that one sees as inherent part of who they are, then uh, it's so. It doesn't mean that there isn't a reason or that there isn't, how should I say, the gift of grace, but they cannot be subjugated by this pattern. Because if they are, it's the end of the person that he's trying to control or subjugate. But the economy has to support both of them having different houses and so on, and no sexual boundary violation. Also, the esoteric around um, and this is where the same issues that were coming up right from the get-go, years after separation, as long as the world does not change, for the same issues. And if the world doesn't change in favor, if the world is trying to dishonor, let's say, the feminine and so on, then plague, volcanoes, Krakatoa eruption, volcanic eruption, plagues, storms, mass graves, and so on. It's just life. It's life. Until women are no longer subjugated. Notice all war ends with women no longer being subjugated to a certain level. An empire can fall. But the relative improvement, whether it's Islam, we talked about matrilineage, or women having their own bank account and their own land, in praxis, and I said this type of transits around Leo, they bring the Dubai divorce by meme. And the man who was trying to control woman, to subjugate woman, or to humble woman, he will be humiliated to depth of his soul, not by the woman being vengeance, vengeful, but by the woman escaping and only be able to send, let's say, a message or a meme, or not even anything. Why? Because she is in trauma. She's overwhelmed from trauma. She will not be with person that she has to be in fear or that this person is controlling. It's not compatible. It will never be. And then the ego of the man, but nobody intended to harm the ego of the man. Nobody intended to humiliate the man. Nobody intended to say goodbye with a message. It's the trauma of attempting to subjugate someone that forced them to escape. And it's only where the world is safe for women. A person cannot vote for a party that plans to take from women the right to vote and expect his life to not be a living hell. Not by the woman staying, but by the woman escaping. And then a person might not even talk for several years, not because they carry grudge, but because they try to live their life. And if they're being pulled back to talk, if they're being confronted with the fact that there was a huge campaign around them when in their absence, what did you try to do? What were you thinking? You thinking you would subjugate the person and they would stay? That you would mistreat a person, even as a friend, and they would stay? That you will be sexually sadistic and a person would want to have sex with you? That you would parentify a person that was tending to their inner child forcibly, and that person would not prefer to apply to assisted death than to be with you? That you will be vengeful and subjugating towards a person that said no, that didn't want to be sexual with you, that didn't even know that you were thinking about this, because you were supposed to be friends or even so. They didn't even conceive in their mind that somebody would go to these routes. That person would be in risk of trafficking, unsolicited pictures, whatnot. Because somebody needed grant for a PhD or to be assistant professor. You thought that if you stop being, that let's say, if there was incompatibility, and a person can be supportive of goals, supportive of dreams, and so on, but that other person is dealing with their inner child wounds, they cannot sleep with you, particularly if you're sadistic. Then you thought you will begin to subjugate them, and what will happen? They would run away from you. They will see you as a beaten, abusive person that they need life saving from. They see you as, I wouldn't say traitor, but somebody that is becoming life threatening to them. Then if they live their life and everything is okay, they can say, okay, there was a crisis in that person, they went through a lot of things, but there has to be a venue. If later suddenly the world is changing to try to subjugate women, and they were part of this change, then and they try to project the fact that they're sadistic doesn't mean, or that they had sadistic tendencies doesn't mean that somebody was masochistic. Not emotionally, not sexually, not erotically, not in any way. They see it as violence, as abuse, as rape. And if an entire society is no place where we're safe from that, entire society can go boom. Krakatoa after Krakatoa after Krakatoa until there's no more